Hello everyone, sorry for the delay in the release of this episode. We recorded it a little while back, but we've been busy with work and moving house and having builders in and other real life horrors. But here it is at last. Thank you for your patience and enjoy.
Is the ice crunching annoying, please, or can you cut it out?
I'll leave it in now you mentioned it. Another new book, like Concrete Siberia.
Oh, look at that.
Oh, yeah.
It's all pictures of
shitholes.
Concrete buildings in Siberia.
Cold shitholes.
Britain. An ancient kingdom with legends of violence, cruelty, and torment in its blood. Join your hosts, Ross, John, and James, as they bravely tread where few would dare. Witness their journey into the horrific history of British horror. They are the General Witchfinders.
Ladies and gentlemen, goblins and ghouls, welcome to the 11th episode of the General Witchfinders podcast. I'm James, in Bournemouth on the south coast of England.
I'm John Pountney in the south of Wales, which is in South Wales.
I am Ross in Dorchester in southern England. And today's episode, we're going to cover the horror of Fang Rock.
I knew that I'd made a terrible mistake. I thought I'd lock the enemy out. Instead, I've locked it in with us.
They always said the beast of Fang Rock would be back.
An alien creature?
Yes.
Travelling through space?
Yes.
And yet desperate, you said. Why?
Devil is there.
The creature has got into the lighthouse. Now we must fight for our lives.
Doctor Who, Horror of Fang Rock, starts tomorrow, 11:40.
Horror of Fang Rock is the first serial of the 15th season of the British science fiction television series Doctor Who. First broadcast in 4 weekly parts on BBC One from the 3rd to the 24th of September, 1977. The TARDIS lands on the island of Fang Rock off the south coast of England in the early 20th century. Noticing that the lighthouse isn't functioning properly, the Doctor, in his fourth incarnation, or Infinity Plus 4 by today's reckoning, played by Tom Baker, decides to investigate. Upon arrival at the lighthouse, the Doctor discovers the dead body of one of their wickies. The other two keepers, old superstitious Reuben and the keen young Vince Hawkins, report that a light fell from the sky near the island. They also explain that the electricity flow on the lamp on the lighthouse has become erratic, and the Doctor deduces something is feeding on the flow. Reuben does not help matters with his constant references to the mythical beast of Fang Rock, which allegedly once terrorized the lighthouse. As the Doctor and his companion, Leela, played by Louise Jameson, explore, something moves Ben's body out of the lighthouse and onto the island, and they witness a curious electric cracking, which seems to have killed fish nearby.
Cool. So Doctor Who, we've finally done Doctor Who.
Yes, we've gone from being a stealth Doctor Who podcast to an overt Doctor Who podcast.
One of the things that drew me to become friends with John when we went to university was that he was a big Doctor Who fan.
Was that obvious at the time?
I think it's one of the things that came out that I think one of the things that came out, we liked the same sort of things. And one of the things that made me love you even more, John, was your Doctor Who fanaticism.
We should point out for people, this was when Doctor Who was not the global brand that it is now. It was absolutely kind of on
point.
1995.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. It was in mothballs still at this point, wasn't it?
It was very mothball. Well, actually, this May is the 25th anniversary of the Paul McGann TV special.
Wow.
Which was on the same year that we went to Cardiff. But I think that the Doctor Who that I was into and still am into, and I'm not so fussed on contemporary Doctor Who, is like the classic run from Hartnell to McCall.
I just assumed that, John, you had seen all classic Doctor Who, and I think
I haven't.
I've tried to watch as much of it as I possibly can because my love of Doctor Who was reignited by meeting John, and I had to write some questions for a Doctor Who quiz between John and our philosophy lecturer, who was a big Doctor Who fan as well. So I got some Doctor Who books, and I read up all about it, and it reminded me all the Doctor Who knowledge and experience that I had growing up and watching it, and I got back into it at that point. I can remember getting quite obsessed that they should bring Doctor Who back at that point, and I wrote a letter to the BBC suggesting that they should bring Doctor Who back as a doctor. With
another boob jiggler.
Ooh. And
do you want me to tell you a story?
Always.
Oh, actually, it might not be him. I might be.
Oh,
I've heard. You can't put this in, but I have heard a story that was a big sexual predator, and at one point jiggled Sandy Toksvig's boobs while she was live on air on the radio.
That's only because those are the only female boobs he could reach.
You can't put that in though, because I can't remember who told me, and it's obviously slanderous. Was meant to be a perv, and that's why they supposedly didn't commission that thing where he was playing the Queen's bodyguard. Do you remember that? It was on one Christmas a few years ago, about 5 years ago. Obviously, the Queen would have a bodyguard who was in his 70s. and
3'2".
Yeah. So, no, I don't think he'll be playing Doctor Who anytime soon.
No, well, that's about half an hour's worth of content we can't include.
Just beat the names out.
Yeah. And they wrote a letter back to me saying that they weren't thinking of bringing Doctor Who back.
They wrote you a letter?
Yeah. Well, the BBC, they used to have to reply to every letter she wrote, so I wrote loads of stuff to them.
They didn't reply to mine. I wrote one to Alan Yentob saying, bring it back.
Maybe Alan. You two, your voices helped move that, get the boulder
rolling again for the return of Doctor Who.
Russell T Davies.
I can remember being in Australia and John either ringing me or texting me to say that the TARDIS is on Queen Street in Cardiff when they were filming the Chris Eccleston return to Doctor.
Was that when you were in Australia?
Yeah. When John didn't understand that there was a time difference.
Of course I understood.
Just to ring me up at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Well, what were you doing in bed when you were in Australia having the time of your life?
I was actually watching Doctor Who on ABC, which they had black and white repeats every tea time. Anyway.
Yeah.
So I didn't realise that John hadn't seen all Doctor Who, and this is one of the serials I believe you hadn't seen before. Is that right, John?
I have not seen this.
Wow.
I haven't seen a huge proportion. I've probably seen everything from Peter Davison onwards, because I saw it when it went out. I've seen quite a lot of Pertwee, but there's a lot of Baker I haven't seen, and obviously there's a lot of Hartnell and Troughton that no one has seen because they've ditched them.
Yeah.
What did you think of John Pertwee's first story?
Well, let me tell you about that. It's a great story. It had to be entirely shot on 16mm for a reason I can't quite remember, and it's the only Doctor Who story that's ever been totally filmed on 16mm
really?
film.
Interesting. I'd like to see that one day. Anyway, so back to the horror of Fang Rock.
Yes. 1977.
Yeah, so this is one of the latest things we've ever covered, isn't it?
Yes. I was quite excited to find out, because I did a little bit of probing around this today in preparation. And I was like, wow, this is great. John's a year younger than Ross and I. But I was like, this was what was on TV when I was born. So I quite enjoyed that. And I looked back further and I found out that in fact it was the talons of
Wing
Chang.
Wing Chang, which was on the day I was born.
Oh, fantastic.
No way.
Oh, no, yeah.
Oh, I can't remember which one mine is now.
That's a controversial one now, though. That's,
I know. Cultural problems.
Yeah,
cultural
culture. I don't know. Yeah, let's not talk about that here.
Yeah, move on.
We don't want Paul Cornell blocking us again, even though he still hasn't unblocked us.
So we start off with an incredible little bit of video effects of something coming from the sky with a lovely model shot of the lighthouse of Fang Rock,
which looked very atmospheric.
Yes,
though every time they cut back to that was that had a real kind of horror feel to it.
Strangely shot on film on 16mm, but then the effect is a video effect, which is is just one of those
quite jarring
BBC things.
But however, it is, like I said before, that is what science fiction to me looked like for a long, long time. And still, this is what my dreams of horror and the special effects budgets in my dreams are this level. But it's almost like someone's just like shined a light over the screen.
That's almost exactly what it is. I can we set the scene by saying this is 1977. This is the summer of the Silver Jubilee. This is God Save the Queen, getting to the top of the chart, Sex Pistols. Yeah. But there was no number one that week. It was number two, which was Sailing by Rod Stewart. This sets the scene for this, 10 million people nearly watched this.
Yeah. Python writing Life of Brian.
Yeah, it's a brilliant
Star Wars.
Star Wars,
still in the cinemas. I would imagine in UK
incredible,
cinemas.
Isn't it?
What a time!
Incredible.
And meanwhile, in Pebble Mill.
Yeah.
Well, what I thought, my initial note is, I thought, especially after a few scenes, I thought, Ross, it's interesting that you said in the preamble that I read out, is that it says that it's set in the 1920s. I thought this could have been set at virtually any time in about 100 years.
Oh, yeah. Because
they never give you a date.
Even though I copy and pasted that,
of course.
wrote it, I just assumed it was Victorian times.
I thought it was
me too.
Victorian.
But then he mentions the car. Like when he turns up and Leela goes, "Oh, the TARDIS." Tom Baker goes, "Oh, well, no, we mean our car is on there." So I thought, wait, so this is set when cars are in.
Does he say
widespread?
Car?
I think he did.
There will be a high proportion of people watching this who will be massive Doctor Who fans and will be tutting and rolling their eyes.
Sorry, everybody.
They'll know much more than us.
Immediately thought that the two of the lighthouse keepers seem to be being played by Eric Idle and Michael Palin, and Harry Seacombe as the older.
Well, no, I thought the third wiki looked like he'd escaped from Carlos Santana's band. he had a very kind of strong 70s, or maybe wore the Los Angelinos funk outfit. He looked like
he wasn't to last long, was he?
No.
I
I struggled to make notes with this. Because I just watched it, and to be fair, it whips by. Episode 3 is a bit unintelligible. I think it could have been a 90-minute kind of film experience rather than 4 25-minute episodes.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that from the get-go, the kind of sets and production design and the atmosphere is actually really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
And a big improvement over a lot of Pertwee stuff, which is only 3 or 4 or 5 years before, which some of them now look really, really shonky. I tried watching Carnival of Monsters recently, which I think was 72. And it's quite unwatchable now because it looks so early 70s and just the colours are so horrible. The costumes are horrible. The effects are horrible. The CSO, the colour separation overlay stuff, of which there is quite a lot in this.
No, more on that.
Which is the BBC equivalent of blue screen. Obviously, the BBC can't use the word chroma key or blue screen. They can only use their own name, which is colour separation overlay, which really reminded me, and I'm sure it will, if you two have seen it, it will remind you as well, which is the Dad's Army episode where they're all stuck in a boat at night on the sea, and they've just all got this blue line around them. And they all look like they're fading into infinity with all the static around their faces.
But when they're up on the top, the main point they use the CSO on this is when they're at the top of the lighthouse and the sky is CSO, and it moves at a different speed to the camera and everything. So it gives a very weird sort of feel to it.
Quite psychedelic.
I said it. My note was Tom Baker's ginormous hair is beautifully contrasted. Like it gave it an electric outline.
Yes.
I don't know why they. I really don't know why they didn't just light a white wall behind that and just smoke it. It would have made much more sense than
load of dry ice.
We've
all had dry ice experience.
Plenty of dry ice experience. I think I got a BA honours in dry ice. The Doctor appears, and I'm trying to work out, were the exterior shots shot externally?
I think it's a set shot on film. So it's probably in a bigger soundstage than the other sets, because the other sets are so small, aren't they?
But that lends itself to a lighthouse, which is often on things. My big complaints is that, especially if they do things like submarines or lighthouses. I said that's too big. That's too big. It would be smaller than that. And I think they did a nice, good job of
it. Works really well. And I think it's probably a budget thing. You know, they had to write one. I think I read that this was Terrance Dicks wrote this because the story that would become State of Decay, which is in a few seasons' time for Tom Baker, was going to clash with Dracula that the BBC were making with Louis Jourdan at that point. So they did this instead, basically, and it does feel a little bit like Terrance Dicks just doing Terrance Dicks, which is not a great characterization, a little bit of class warfare. It kind of writes itself, but it's immensely enjoyable in the meantime.
It was like Who Goes There / The Thing.
Yeah.
It's exactly that same thing of people stuck in a remote location.
Yeah.
Something starts picking them off.
Yeah. Something
can take the form of a human. It's that trope. And I thought and I read the same thing as you, John. I thought that's really interesting how like having to turn it away from being something Dracula-esque to this is like the second go-to for the horror trope.
Oh yeah.
You've either got that, the enigmatic dark force of work, or you've got that we're stuck somewhere and we're under attack by someone.
Mentality thing, isn't it? Yeah. And it's classic Terrance Dicks. I have met Terrance Dicks. I don't know if I've got any stories I can tell later.
So tell me more about it, because I am not the Whovian of the group, but I am so aware of the name of Terrance Dicks. Is it just mainly Who that he kind of rose to fame on, or has he got more of a background?
Yeah, pretty much. He came in Troughton's run, I think, as script editor,
right,
and then he certainly script edited Pertwee's run with Barry Letts as producer. And wrote a lot of that. But then what he's really known for is doing all the Target novelizations.
Yes.
Which he must have written one a week for like 20 years or something, basically.
Knocking around.
Which is, it's an incredible, when you look at them all, and it's all like, it's Terrance Dicks, Terrance Dicks, Terrance Dicks, Terrance Dicks, someone else, Terrance Dicks, Terrance Dicks, Terrance Dicks. And there's like 170 of them or something insane.
Wow.
But, he did do a lot of other stuff, mainly writing for children's books, and he did a series of books on the Baker Street Irregulars.
Oh, okay.
That are the kids that pop up in the Sherlock Holmes stories. I'm sure there's tons and tons and tons of stuff that he did. Very prolific, and really to be credited with the creation, really, of the character of the Doctor, because he wrote the kind of script outline Bible for the Doctor that I think was then passed on. So he came up with the thing: he's never cruel or cowardly. He's always kind, and blah 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 blah. So that's his thing that went forward from the Pertwee.
Which is completely the opposite to what the original character was. As
off. I mean, Hartnell is a really, fascinating,
cowardly.
Yeah. Really interesting character. Then Troughton is obviously really different. Yeah, but what do we think about Baker in this story?
Well, I think he's incredible, and I've written so many times in my notes here that Tom's smile, or is he playing it as written, or because there's some lines he says which I'm sure he just. What was that?
What was that? It's like Ghost Adventures.
Yeah, did you hear like a music box?
Ice cream van. It sounded like an ice cream van.
It sounded like a music box to me, like a children's music box. I wonder if that's going to come out on the recording.
Hopefully.
Because it sounded like it was in the room.
Yeah. I definitely heard it in my headphone ear, not in this room.
Right. Okay. Creepy. Right. But there's so many points in there where it looked like he was completely subverting what the lines he was saying.
Yes.
By his delivery of it. And when some people would say some very dramatic, almost over the top dramatic lines, it looked like he was going to laugh. Yeah. And I was thinking, is that Tom Baker thinking this is ridiculous, or is he thinking the Doctor would find this ridiculous? And
he was drunk most of the time, wasn't he?
I think Tom Baker would struggle to find the difference between Tom Baker and the Doctor at that point. But I think his performance is just, I mean, it's so incredible that he just carries the whole thing with his own bravado. And when you look at some of the more recent Doctor Who's now, you're just like, whoa, like, where is this enormous figure at the center of the show? And I think that's what it's really missing at the moment even with like Peter Capaldi. Like, I don't think he's got that insane magnetism where Tom Baker's eyes are just popping out. He's not saying anything. And it's mad that you just like transfixed.
My note is I've just written Baker is Doctor Who, and I've underlined the word is. Because that's just, I've heard so many things and people always go, oh, the person who you think is Doctor Who is the person who he was when you were a kid. Yes. But for me, that was Peter Davison. And I just think it was Tom Baker.
Yeah.
Tom Baker. So Tom Baker's Doctor Who.
Peter Davison for me as well is very much in my psyche. And actually, as I get older, Colin Baker and Sylvester McCoy now, I think, God, when I think back now and when I watch the old ones now, I actually find them more enjoyable I feel like modern Doctor Who, the Doctor isn't actually part of the story very much. Just seems to observe what's happening with bloody River Song and Amy friggin' Pond and stupid Jenna Coleman and fucking Bradley Wiggins, Bradley Walsh.
It'd be amazing if they got Bradley Wiggins on his bike going on about Paul Weller the whole time. Just going like doing lazy circles around the Doctor like he's doing.
I just watched this and I thought, because Leela also is very, very good in this.
Yes.
It's really fucking annoying though, for like the fact that she does the absolute opposite to everything.
I like that her attitude is just stab them.
Yeah.
She gets on the front foot, doesn't she? She's like Telly Savalas in Horror Express. Let's sort this out straight away. Let's get the knife out.
Always picking up objects and seeing if they are good enough as a weapon. And
that's good.
Trying out a spade.
Really good characterization.
One of Baker's, whichever one Baker was knocking off for a while.
Really? It wasn't her, but...
Oh, okay.
Oh, hang on. I'm really... Right, hang on. This is blowing my mind.
You must know this.
Was it not Jane Ashley?
No. That's Paul McCartney. She was talking about...
Lala Ward.
It is Lala Ward, is it?
Yeah, so that's Tom Baker's ex-wife.
Tom Baker's ex-wife.
Yeah, he's married to
Are they still married now?
I believe so.
Oh, separated 2016.
No, she couldn't stand him anymore.
Why wasn't that on the headline of the news? Fucking Bill
Gates.
Bill Gates, yeah.
Yeah. So she is a warrior kind of princess from the tribe of the Sever team, and she is introduced in the story Face of Evil,
which is a giant statue of Tom Baker's face.
Tom Baker's face.
Awesome.
As you were asking me off air earlier, James, I don't know if she's from the past or the future, but she's not human.
She's from the future because
it is the future, is it?
I probably got this wrong, but it's a human spaceship which crashed, isn't it? And then they over the
eons,
eons, they start worshipping the Doctor, who at some point in his future, helped them out in their past and.
It's a very clever,
of course.
Clever bit of writing.
Yeah. And they've all got like the priests have got like weird, got like technology and stuff, haven't they? And
scarves.
Yes,
they got scarves.
Yeah. So this is the first story, I think, and I might be wrong again. I'm sure Whovians will know, where she's not dressed in like her leather bondage gear that she wears in that first episode.
Yeah.
And when they turn up, she's in a very weird kind of
Victorian
kind of, like flower seller or match girls kind of uniform. But then changes into a man's outfit
which looked quite she's quite current, didn't she?
Yeah, but it's just so they could do the joke of her getting undressed in front of the 1920s man who can get embarrassed by it. But I was thinking, they're all wearing really, really thick, heavy jumpers. They must have been sweating their tits off under those studio lights. Yeah. So we're not doing very well covering the story of this, are we?
Okay, well, we can whip through it quickly, Ross.
Well, in the first episode, what happens? The Doctor goes there. Something mysterious is killing people.
Something's landed in the water.
Yeah.
The light's been going on and off. And then
mentioned in the preamble.
Yeah, and then one of the lighthouse keepers gets killed, and that's basically what happens in the first episode, isn't it? And the Doctor wears a bowler hat, which looks cool. Which he wears on the cover of the Target.
He's on the cover of the Target novel. Yes. And then the cliffhanger is is some kind of schooner or pleasure yacht or something. Crashing into the rocks. But again, it's not a bad kind of model shot of this event.
It's better than the train in Horror Express.
Yes, exactly.
It is, yeah. And this, for me, seals all that is evil with modern Doctor Who is the lack of cliffhangers. Doctor Who, for me, is a sequence of 2, 3, 4 episodes, even sometimes bloody 7 episodes, where you have cliffhangers.
How many was the War Games?
Oh my God, like 10 episodes or something, I think, insane. But Doctor Who, for me, the integral part of the DNA is the cliffhanger, and that is something that I do miss. I mean, I miss lots of things in the new Doctor Who. Story development, character development, storylines. But I think that, this just shows that the format is... I think this one isn't a great one to choose because I think the third episode is literally just padding because it's lots of people going up and down stairs a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
But it's just great to have a cliffhanger and it's like, oh, what's going to happen next week? Rather than it's just all being tied up in an episode, which is so much of Doctor Who now. And I know I sound like an old fart, but I don't care. Episode 2.
The big thing for me is that, like, they oh, what's that down there in the water?
Yeah.
And my note is, it looks like it's a Brussels sprout.
Glowing Brussels sprout.
A glowing Brussels sprout being pulled along. It's not
with lots of crackling sound effects. But there was some classic monster POV stuff in this, isn't there?
Oh, yeah.
Slightly too much, I would say. Yeah. It's a nice kind of idea, but then once you've seen the POV for the 48th time, where it's like a black and white circle in amongst some out of focus tinsel.
Sound effects going over the top of it. Yeah. So then we get some of the people on the boat coming ashore, don't we?
So then we get the introduction of the toffs.
Mm-hmm.
To bring a bit of
racial
tension,
class
warfare. It's not totally convincing, and there's a big because of what we'll come to discuss later, and there's also a subplot which is to do with some money that the younger guy, Lord
Henry.
Palmer's, is it Lord Palmer's Dale or something?
Or something, yeah,
something along those lines.
He's trying to get money off the other guy who's been in India or something, and to be honest, I took no notice of that story whatsoever because
it's very superfluous.
It really is.
Well, one of them is given some inside information. In order for him to make some money on the stock exchange, but he has to do it by the time the stock market opens.
Oh, I see.
Desperate to get back to London.
Yeah, but he spent too long at the casino, wherever they were.
Yeah.
So that they're running late. So he made the guy made the boat go too fast.
The captain.
And then they crashed the boat. And I didn't realise till later on that loads of people on the boat died. They are the only survivors.
Yes.
It wasn't until later on when the sole surviving crew member starts trying to strangle him and accusing him of killing all the other people that I realised that the whole crew had died, because they make quite light of this.
Also, the guy who is Henry, the Lord, not Palmerston, Lord Palmer, whatever he is, basically I've written down, he's our upper class, uppity arsehole.
Yes.
That we often get. Often when we've watched a lot of things, there's an uppity arsehole in it. It's like, oh,
yes.
I haven't got time for this. Give me the truth. Oh,
you know what a rat sounds like, boy.
Yeah, that's right. You're country lads. He was that guy from the Stone Tape for this episode, wasn't he?
I can't remember the Stone Tape guy's name, but it is him.
Oh, yeah.
What's his name, Cleves? Can you remember?
No, but it was brilliant. It's my favourite thing so far.
I was later on when he is dispatched by the horror of Fang Rock itself. I was like, yes. I did go, way. I was genuinely pleased to see him die.
Can we discuss at this point? I don't think we need to worry about spoilers for something that was shown in 1977, but I did find the attitude of death, the attitude towards death in this episode or this story really, really weird.
Especially for the Doctor, because everyone dies, and he doesn't seem
literally everyone dies, and there's quite a touching kind of rapport between the Doctor and Vince. And at one point he says something like, "You're a good lad, Vince." Yeah, and you think, "Oh, this is good. This is going to end well for Vince." No, but then literally everyone dies except the Doctor and Leela.
Everyone dies. They just leave people to fight. Imagine being the authorities that come. What the hell is happening?
Well, they imply, don't they? That this
it's
is
like the Mary Celeste kind of thing.
That's the whole legend of like finding the lighthouse with everyone dead on it, and he sort of quotes that famous poem at the end. At the end,
yeah. So what do we think about that? Because I found that really almost distasteful in the way that you're trying to... Who is the Doctor trying to save at that point?
I think he's trying to save Earth.
Yes, but that kind of... That becomes... When all the characters are dead, it's a bit weird. It's strange. You don't know who you're rooting for, do you?
There'd be a lot more hand-wringing over it in modern Doctor Who, wouldn't there?
And also, I've written, you wouldn't have that ending in modern Doctor Who.
No.
They wouldn't. No. They wouldn't all die.
Because I can see, especially this Doctor, maybe not crying over the bodies, but I feel like it's the role of the companion.
Yeah.
And I may be spoilt by, again, modern Doctor Who, but I feel it's like the role of the companion to actually sort of call him out on it and say, look, you should be upset that all these people have died.
Yes.
But she's, and again, it's probably her character, but she's
just laughing.
She's equally not giving a shit about it.
No. It's very weird. The writing is quite strange. And I am so loyal to Doctor Who that I feel strange criticising it. But I do think killing everyone off really removes the ending has no kind of sense of peril or anything, because everyone's already dead. And it's like, oh, the Earth, the Rutan, or Ruton, as they keep saying. I always thought it was Rutan. The Rutan spaceship is going to blow up the Earth. But it's like, all the characters you've just spent the last 4 weeks with have all been electrocuted to death. So why would you care at that point? Because the Doctor's going to escape anyway, don't you? I mean, that's the point of Doctor Who.
There is that. And also, they kind of made that like there was no kind of like, this plan might not work.
Yeah.
He was like, this will work. This will work. And it did.
We're going to put the diamonds in the thing and then put the thing on the thing and bang. And it's like, all right, okay.
The solution. It's a Deus Ex Machina that it just happens at the end. There's no kind of... I feel like they should have been planting the idea that he's got diamonds on him from pretty early on. But I suppose if they started doing that, you see it as an obvious thing. It's going to be called back to later on. But often it's just like, we need some diamonds. We can use the light. We're going to fire the light at the end. Let's get out of here. Whereas, I feel like you need to sort of seed that in a little bit more and allow it to sort of like, us, the audience to come to that conclusion alongside the people who are in the story.
It's weird. The pacing is a bit weird because there's so much padding in episode 3, and then the end of episode 4 is just like everyone dies. Put that in there. Yeah, okay. Flash the light. Okay, poetry or the end. And it's
you don't necessarily know that anyone's who are watching the last episode have seen any of the other episodes, do they? So it's just
good
got
point.
to work. Whereas we're watching this all in a row, and when we suddenly feel like the last episode the solutions hasn't been seeded in any of the previous episodes, when they don't necessarily need to do that, and they might not have written it in the last episode by the time they're making the first one. I don't know.
They probably all made it up on the day in a carry house in Birmingham where they invented the Balti. I don't know when the Balti, but shall we find out when the Balti was invented? Do we think Tom Baker would have shouted the crew to a Balti in Birmingham after the wrap of this?
I think he would have gone and watched Doctor Who in a child's living room whilst the
Doctor. But now, because you two can, and I think for the listening masses would want to hear this as well. You two have both met the great man, haven't you?
Yes.
And I think people will need to hear, Ross, about when you met Dr. Tom Baker.
It's not an example.
I think it's quite good.
Me and John skived off philosophy to go and
good man. Good.
His autobiography, Who on Earth is Tom Baker?
Balti Curry arrived in England in Birmingham in 1971. Sources suggest it originates from Baltistan in northern Pakistan.
Yet again, 1971 is a nexus for us.
So I like to think that Tom maybe went with Louise Jameson and Paddy Russell, the female director of this story, and shouted them all to a nice Balti curry. We were meeting it. I've met him twice.
Oh,
okay. So we met him when we went to get the biography of Who on Earth is Tom Baker, which talks about him making a fake penis out of a screwdriver when he played Rasputin. That was one of my favourite stories in that book. But I've lost that book. I don't know where it is. If either of you got it,
I've got my own copy that I bought the same day, Cleve.
Yeah, so we queued up and then told him that we skived off philosophy to come and see the real Doctor, and he was like,
Would you like a jelly? Were we in Blackwell's?
Blackwell's and Waterstones, I think.
It's Blackwell's, and it's not there anymore.
And he gave us a jelly baby. So that was good.
Did he?
Yeah. Would you like a jelly baby?
Yeah.
And I also remember, Ross, you telling me that, like, you were suddenly, because you've met a couple of famous people before, but you were suddenly overawed.
So scared.
Again, him, and you were like frozen to the spot.
I was so like, I need to say something, and I just couldn't think of anything to say.
I need to say something. Really That's like when I met Brett Anderson of Suede. Well, no, I was going to meet.
Doctor Who.
Yes, he would.
I was going to meet Brett Anderson. We went to Chapter to see, in 2016, they did a film that accompanied one of their albums, and it was screened in Chapter, so we went to see it. And Brett and Matt Osman were there, and then they did a signing at the end, but I hadn't brought anything to sign because I didn't think they'd do a signing.
When we met Debbie Harry, you got her to sign a picture of Rod Stewart.
Well, I didn't have anything. I didn't have any pictures of Rod Stewart with me that day. But
you didn't jack cushion at the back of your car.
Yes, which I still got. But with the first time I met Tom Baker was in the Royal Show, which was in Stoneleigh Showground in 1992. And there was a BBC. So the Royal Show is an agricultural show, which doesn't happen anymore. It was absolutely massive, and I can't believe it doesn't happen anymore. It was amazing, and it was very BBC Midlands centric. So they had, in 1986, they had Anita Dobson in the back of a flatbed Land Rover, driving around like the Pope, waving at crowds. But in
anyone can fall in love.
But then in 1992, we heard on the radio, local radio, that day Tom Baker was going to appear in the BBC tent in the Royal Show. So me and my mother went, and then basically it was a jamboree where there was Matt Irvin, who did all the special effects for Doctor Who. So K9 was there, the proper K9 was there. And he showed how he did all the radio control for K9 and stuff.
Cool.
I'm trying to think who else was there. There was a few other strange people, like a guy that used to be in a sitcom called Hugh something, and I don't know why he was there. But then Tom Baker came out and just told this rambling monologue dressed in this suit, which he appeared to have had for the previous 20 years, which when you look at him, for all of his other like previous promo shots for Doctor Who for the past 20 years, he's wearing the same suit, like a pinstripe suit. And then, so then I waited to meet him afterwards. And basically no one else was, this is when Doctor Who was like on the bones of its arse. So it wasn't even on TV at this point. No one else was there to meet Tom Baker, which was nuts. He didn't give a toss, and he sat and talked to me for like 25 minutes, and it was absolutely brilliant. But he was promoting Sharda, which is the unfinished story from, I can't remember which season. I think the season after this, potentially, or maybe the season after the next season. I can't remember now. But that was released on video, and he'd done interlocking. What the hell do you call it? He'd done a voiceover to narrate the parts that weren't finished, basically. And then he signed the script book, which I've still got somewhere. So it was amazing. But the both times I've met him, he's brilliant. I think he is brilliant. I think he's nuts, but I think he literally is the Doctor. And I think Tom Baker just plays Tom Baker as the Doctor. And that's what you get when you meet him, which is no bad thing, really. But it's funny to see that Paddy Russell says in the Wikipedia entry for this that he was very difficult to work with, and the role had gone to his head. And I can imagine that was the case. After this point, I think he had got into trouble with Graham Williams, who was the producer on this, because he wanted the companion to be a talking cabbage that would sit on his shoulder. Which,
well, it's almost there at the end, isn't it? It's almost a talking cabbage at the end. They hear a scream, don't they?
Is that episode 2 or episode 3?
That's the end of episode 2.
Is it? My notes are rubbish.
The older wiki, whose name I've already forgotten.
Reuben.
Yeah.
Reuben. He's like, and then he'd freak out about it, and then he just comes back and said, kind of the thing, who goes there? Hello, everyone.
This is where I got quite confused, because I didn't know if it was a reanimated body or like a shapeshifter in the style of the Zygons.
I assumed it was a reanimated body, but then later on they find the body, so it wasn't a reanimated body, wasn't it?
And the alien says, assume BBC Radiophonics Workshop
Yeah,
special effects
sound voice, yeah.
We have got better. We have been working on transforming ourselves, Doctor. That kind of vibe.
Amazing.
And then Tom Baker says something pithy to them, like, "Oh well, keep at it, dear boy." Kind of.
It is brilliant how posh he sounds, isn't it? I don't think you have posh heroes anymore. I don't think you're allowed to have posh heroes anymore.
Matt Smith was like posh.
Was he?
I think he was. He was a posh boy trying not to sound posh.
Yeah, whereas Tom just sounds posh. Like, it's very RP, isn't it?
Yes.
And I enjoy that kind of thing, really.
I quite like the character of the secretary.
Well, Adelaide, that was her name.
It was obvious that she was. Well, I felt like it was obvious she was having an affair with her boss. Yeah, and she loved him, and couldn't see his faults and everything, even though he was an absolute arsehole.
Yeah,
that was it.
And the one point when she finds out that he's died, he's been electrocuted, she starts going, "Ooh!"
I know.
And Louise Jameson just slaps her.
Yeah.
I just slap her. She's hysterical.
There's some incredible overacting at this point. She faints at one point. She screams a lot. I really enjoy that. And I think she's to be seen as a semi-comedic character. Unfortunately, she's just brutally murdered. Well.
And then I've written her death was is a mercy in a way
to her and the viewers.
The alien then starts basically killing off as we've already pre-mentioned. Spoilers, everybody. Everyone dies. So the people of the lighthouse are sort of picked off one by one. Tom Baker gives us a science lesson concerning diodes and electricity.
Yeah.
He goes very teacher at one point. He goes, "Well, let me tell you something about electricity here, kids." And and spells it all out for us. And then it becomes clear that Reuben is in fact the alien who has crash landed, the monster that's been terrorizing them. And then Tom Baker goes, "Don't keep that ridiculous appearance on, kind of appear as yourself." And he goes, very well, Doctor. Then he said he just kind of appears as like what looks like a cough suite that's been left down the back of a sofa. It's kind of green and it's sort of covered in hair, isn't it?
So were you aware of the significance of the Routons, James?
Oh, Christ, no. I had no idea.
So the Routons are the race who have been having the endless war with the Sontarans. The Sontarans, who are probably like a second level bad guys, aren't they? So,
yeah. They're not up there with
they look like they've got potatoes. Their heads
that's right.
We're a clone race with a great big egg head. By cloning our race is revealed the same. We are green and very, very mean. Monsters for the boot, a scum we fight or we die. We conquer lesser planets and destroy them. We are Sontarans and are as mean as our name. To our soldiers, war is make a game.
All right, come to your death.
I love the Sontarans, and my favourite, and maybe something we should watch at some point, is the Two Doctors with the Sontarans, which is just the most insane fever dream Doctor Who story you will ever see. Where at one point,
filmed in Spain, wasn't it?
Yeah, and this Patrick Troughton's got orange eyebrows stuck on at one point. It's just so weird.
But wasn't that story related to the appearance of Doctor Who on Jim Will Fix It? I'm sure it was.
Yes, it was Doctor Who in a fix with the Sontarans, and I think they did it at the same time to reuse the costumes. But I think Tegan is in that, Janet Fielding, not rather than Perry. Nicola Brown, who is the very curvaceous companion to Colin's Doctor. Unheralded, but I think a very good companion and a very likeable companion. So where are we up to with the story? There's a good line. By morning, we might all be dead.
Oh, I've got the actual line written down here, just to make everyone feel safe and like the Doctor's gonna.
Yeah. This
lighthouse is under attack, and by morning we may all be dead. But he says it with a smile, doesn't he? Whereas I feel like that wasn't in the script for that. He needs to be laughing when he's saying this line to everyone.
The way that Tom does everything is like the opposite of what's expected.
Yeah.
What a wheeze this is.
Great costume as well. This is my favourite version of his costume.
He does look
the
great.
legendary scarf. Yeah.
I like season 18's costume as well, which is a very burgundy.
Oh, I don't like that one.
You don't like that one?
No, John Nathan Turner's
I love
influence.
That one.
So there's a good bit here in episode 3.
The question marks.
Yes, episode 3 where the horrible rich man is trying to bribe the young Vince to send a message off on the radio, and he gives them all that money. And then the monster is being pulled up the side of the model of the lighthouse, which all amazing special effects.
Yeah.
But then he has second thoughts and he burns the money, and I thought that was quite a nice little
yes. Well, it's character development.
Yeah.
That's what really annoys me about this story, is that there's character development which then goes nowhere because everyone's just killed off. Why is everyone killed? One thing that I think is a really weird, you can't really call it a plot hole, it just doesn't go anywhere, is why Reuben keeps talking about the beast of Fang Rock and what happened 80 years ago before, and then it's never ascertained whether the Routons have been there before.
I feel like that's probably going to be picked up in a big finish.
It probably
at some point.
Probably already has been. But I found that weird. I just thought that was something that they've kind of dropped in, and then it isn't. The Doctor says, balderdash. It's, What's the
Myth.
word? I can't think of the
It's
word.
just myth.
Yeah. And but then it's not, they don't kind of find out either way if it's actually
It's
to do with what's going on.
Flavour to it all, isn't it? And it sort of adds to the spookiness of the whole thing. So, would you say this is a horror? Would you class this as a horror story?
Now, the thing is, you got to remember that, as I was watching it, I was like, ultimately, this is made for a family audience. As I was saying, it was Who Goes There, the thing for a family, for kids who are 10 and 11. There were shots that were atmospheric and things that are very moody. But let's face it, there was no sort of jump scare. As John says, there were no real stakes to it. There was because everyone was dead. Everyone was kind of. I wouldn't classify it as a horror, no.
I think the amount of death in it, and you do see blood at one point on a corpse. I think there's a description of a corpse. That certainly would not be anywhere near contemporary Doctor Who. I can't imagine ever seeing blood in modern Doctor Who on any dead bodies.
Someone calls the lighthouse a bastard machine at one point as well, which I thought was interesting for
Yeah. I think it's interesting that things passed under the radar then, that now they would, some kind of management team meeting for the tone meeting in the BBC, they'd shit themselves if they
everyone's dead.
Yeah.
And this is going out at 7:00. This is going out at 7:00 on Saturday night.
It's a bit like, it wouldn't even pass the Hays Code, really, because it's like you couldn't have an ending that's so nihilistic, really. I can't. I was really surprised to see that everyone dies and it isn't, the last scene isn't a few of them back on the boat and sailing off into the sunset. Yeah. I thought that was really surprising. And quite weird, actually.
But I do like it that it's a pretty straightforward story, because
it's very straightforward. Yeah.
I find that a lot of sort of science fiction stuff or fantasy stuff from this era, when I watch it, like Sapphire and Steel, it's almost like I don't really understand what's happening. And I do find that with a lot of, I would say, particularly Sylvester McCoy Doctor Who, but some of the Colin Baker and Peter Davison Doctor Who, where I'm watching, I don't really understand this. That it's almost so ramped up its weirdness that it's just almost impenetrable.
Really?
Yeah.
Name one story.
What? Ghostlight?
Oh, well, you know exactly what's happening in Ghostlight.
Snake Dance?
Yeah, I know exactly what's happening in Snake Dance.
I just find it really difficult to watch. The Visitation.
What? The Visitation is like the most simple story to understand.
Or was it Enlightenment? I'm getting mixed up. But is that
Enlightenment is quite cloudy.
Yeah. I just so much of this stuff. But if we go talk about contemporary stuff to this episode, if we talk about like Sapphire and Steel and stuff, got no idea what's going on most of the time.
Sapphire and Steel was an adult program though, wasn't it? Whereas this was on at like 6:30 or something on a Saturday night before the Generation Game or whatever. So you've got to remember that aspect of it. Overall, I really enjoyed it, but I was surprised by the death toll and how miserable the ending was. It was quite un-Doctor Who-y. To have no one saved and it just to be, well, we've saved the planet, but no one really knows that we've saved the planet.
Well, should we skip
Moving on?
Yeah. So we've kind of talked about what happens in the last episode.
Yeah. Carry on.
Yeah. So should we talk about, would we recommend this and what our general thoughts are? It's going to be quite a short episode tonight if we do that.
That's right.
I'm
One
happy
of the things
with that.
I just want to point out is that when the Doctor sets up the final, I'm going to blow up the spaceship from distances, he says to Louise Jameson, once this begins, we've got 117 seconds to get out of here.
I enjoyed that.
Such an amazingly precise amount of time. Like, how did he figure that out?
And that's probably Tom put that in as well.
Yeah, fair enough. Yes.
Terence, I've thought of a line, 117 seconds. I'll put that in. You're all right with that, aren't you? Yes, of course.
And if you don't let me say this, I'm not going to do that.
Replace the companion with a fucking cabbage.
Cabbage. I'm friends with Francis Bacon. John's all round.
Would we recommend this?
Yeah, definitely. This is. I feel if you have to look at a classic Doctor Who,
yeah,
I would say this. I feel there's. When I was younger, there used to be some Doctor Who videos you could hire from the video shop, which the video shop was opened by Darth Vader, James.
Of course,
one of your favourite stories.
Brilliantly.
Noticed someone dresses Darth Vader, and he got a load of hassle from the Waterloo Estate kids.
Yeah.
So 50p, you could rent Horror Fang Rock, The Talents of Ren Chian,
Revenge of the Cybermen?
What's the Zygon
Terror
one called?
of the Zygons.
Terror of the Zygons.
Mm.
Yeah, you could rent any of those ones, and they're all mixed up in my head, and that's why I'm always confused when Terror of the Zygons is a Pertwee story. Is it? No, it's not.
No. That's Baker as well, but it's quite similar to this because it's shape-shifting aliens as well.
What's the one with the
Loch Ness Monster?
Loch Ness Monster.
Yeah, that's Terror of the Zygons.
All right, so there is a Pertwee story as well, which we could rent, but I always get that mixed up as well.
Day of the Daleks?
It might be the Demons.
No, that didn't come out on video until much later.
I don't know. Anyway, I'll cut all this out then because it makes no sense. But yeah, those are the ones which I watched over and over again as a kid. Would rent them out, and yes, this is classic. I think this is classic Doctor Who.
I would recommend the first episode, or maybe episode 2, but episode 3 and 4, I don't know, and I don't know if I would.
Oh yes, because this is the first time you saw it, John. So tell us more about that.
Well, I wouldn't have the second 2 episodes, as in the final 2 episodes. I wouldn't have those down as quintessential Doctor Who. I think they're quite atypical in the fact that everyone dies. It's quite a miserable ending. I think that the atmosphere and the kind of plotting of episode 1 and 2 is really good. Is exceptionally good for Doctor Who. And then I think after that, it goes a bit weird.
But for me, I think classic Doctor Who works best as historicals because it looks fine. If they do anything future-based, it just looks shit.
It's often not very good. You know, people with grey makeup on and stuff. And I don't know. I mean, it's difficult because I remember watching a story like Frontios when I was a kid, which is a Davison story, which absolutely scared the living shit out of me. And when I tried to watch it again fairly recently, obviously it just didn't have the same effect. And I couldn't really match up my memory with even what was happening on screen, which was quite weird. But this one, I don't know. For the purposes of the podcast, I don't know if I would recommend it as a horror, which is quite weird. I mean, as a horror Doctor Who, I think there's much more horrific Doctor Who, but I do think that comes later, particularly there's a story, a Colin Baker story called Mind Warp, where Peri has her brain swapped with a slug-like alien called Kiv. And the doctor can't do anything about it. And it's really horrific because the companion has died and she's been changed into this creature, which is just nuts. And they would never, ever do anything like that with the storytelling.
That didn't actually happen. That was just the...
It did turn out at the end of the season, that she'd gone off with Brian Blessed playing King Yrkranos. But I remember at the time, because she wakes up and she's had all of her hair shaved off, supposedly, but it's just a ball cap, obviously. And that is a really horrific story. Also, Terror of the Vervoids from that season as well. There's a woman in this weird incubator thing who's turned half into a plant, and half of her face is turned into a plant. And I found that absolutely terrifying when I was little, and I watched that again quite recently. And that is really, really... You just can't believe that was on at that point, 1986, Saturday tea time, like someone with half their face turned into a plant.
I was going to say, the one that I remember watching and feeling, kind of feeling uncomfortable watching it and feeling like a bit discombobulated. I've mentioned it before. The one was Sylvester McCoy one, the circus one.
Yeah. Greatest Show in the Galaxy.
That I found that pretty creepy.
Yeah,
when I was a kid,
it is creepy
in a way that I didn't find this creepy.
Another one which doesn't make any. It just I don't know what's happening. I'm just enjoying something out of the unusual being on television.
Do you listen to the dialogue though, Cleves? Or do you just watch the pictures?
I think I do often zone out when I'm watching television.
I was quite surprised by a lot of this story, and I didn't expect a lot of it. And I've seen that it's had great reviews from illustrious Whovians in the past, in various books. And I don't know if I agree with them. Like people saying 5 out of 5 for it. I don't know if it's a 5 out of 5 compared to your remembrance of the Daleks or your. I mean, that's probably my favourite story of all time.
We went and saw that at the South Bank, didn't we, John?
We did, and I still think that is just an unbelievable piece of television that looks so epic that you can't believe it was made in 1988 on a budget of like 2 pence.
I was really, really excited to go and see that, but I got really pissed the night before. And I went all the way to London, and I think I slept through half of it.
Was that in the BFI?
But we did get to go into a room with Sylvester McCoy dressed in a kilt on crutches. So that was I was very scared then. That was another point where I got very, very frightened that I might get to talk to Sylvester McCoy and not know what to say. So
what year was that?
Not sure.
Was it for... It wasn't for the 50th, was it?
No. It might have been.
2013.
Around about that time.
Yeah, fucking hell.
Lots of people hanging around. It was quite cool, though, going into the green room with all the people hanging around outside with their photo albums with loads
of... We just walked straight through.
Yeah.
We met the special weapons Dalek as well, didn't we?
Did we? James, would you recommend watching this to anyone?
As I said, as a non-Whovian, I would say if you're a Doctor Who fan, it's absolutely worth a watch for the reasons that we've highlighted, i.e. the darkness, the very kind of almost nihilistic ending. Absolutely, and I think it's an important part of the show's history like that. But as for non-Whovians, no, I wouldn't watch it.
Yeah,
it's not.
I think you're right, James. I think Tom's performance, it's a bit like Deathline in that Tom's performance elevates it way beyond what the material is, which is actually A to B to C to D. Monster in a lighthouse, killing everyone. Literally all that happens is a monster goes to a lighthouse, it kills everyone, and then it finishes. It's like there's
he's beaten quite easily.
Yeah, what do they even do? They fire a fucking
rocket at him.
Yeah,
the major sacrifices his life. He goes, and just launches himself at it.
That isn't quite an effective death because it's backwards, and so they obviously filmed pulling the tentacle off him, but it's played backwards, so it looks like the tentacle goes around his neck, and that's quite a good death. Whereas the other deaths are just people screaming with like a blue tint over them.
Like kind of miniature Dalek effects, isn't it?
Yeah.
The light on, light off.
Yeah. Put big light on and off.
Okay, so would we survive this? This is our new segment, which I've introduced.
Would anyone survive this?
Obviously not.
No.
Unless you are Doctor Who. I'll say that without ice in my mouth. No, you wouldn't survive it unless you are Doctor Who, because everyone dies.
Marks out of 5.
Difficult, innit, as a Whovian.
As a non-Whovian, I'd say 2.
Oh, a 2 for James.
I was going to say 2 as well. I think a solid 4 for Tom, and probably a solid 4 for Louise Jameson as well, who I think is really good in this.
Yes.
I've never seen Leela before, and I think she's really engaging and a good companion.
Oh, you've never seen Leela before?
No, I haven't, no. Compared to some of the sad sacks that we've got now as companions that are just absolutely fag paper thin, just non-portrayals even of human beings. I think this is she was really good in this.
Yeah.
So what, you giving it a 4?
2.
2.
But 4s for the leads.
So I had this down as a 4, but you guys talked me down. So I'm going to give
me down.
I'm going to give it a 3.
A
3.
But if you weren't watching it stoned, no, I'm sorry.
That's interesting. What is pigmentation dispersal caused by the flash? Your eyes have changed colour. You can stop blinking now. Let's go.
What colour are they?
Blue. Either we're hunted high and low, and hunted everywhere.
What?
The Ballad of Flannan Isle by Wilfred Gibson.
Who?
Wilfred Gibson. Either we're hunted high and low, and hunted everywhere. The three men's fate. We found no trace. In any time, in any place, but a door ajar and an untouched meal, and an over-toppled chair.
Next time on the General Witchfinders, we will be covering Clive Barker's Hellraiser, available to stream on Amazon Prime in the UK.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Everyone.
Happy day.
Yeah.
Until next time, everyone, stay safe. Speak to you soon.
Love, light, and peace.
You have been listening to the General Witchfinders. Support the show and continue the conversation at patreon.com/General Witchfinders. Subscribe and spread the word at generalwitchfinders.com. Farewell, and don't have nightmares.
Get his dick out and put it on people's shoulders when they were in the makeup chair. I've met him and he's not a nice man.
Oh dear.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
He gave me a very, very lusty clap on the arm, which was very like alpha male and kind of like I'm the boss here when I asked him to do something in a photo. Who was I slagging off before? I can't remember who. Oh,
Michael Sheen.
Michael Sheen, of course.
He's not as bad as Sheen. He's more transparent than Sheen. I think he knows that he's a prick and he doesn't care. Whereas I think Sheen genuinely does think he's Jesus.
Christ, yeah.
And all this is going in the podcast, isn't
it?
Yeah.
Of course.
I was going to say character assassination. Fuck, yeah. I only had half a beer.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Half of skinny beer, which is gluten-free, wheat-free.
Oh. What the fuck's it made of?
Low calories. I don't know.
Well, how can you make beer if it hasn't got gluten?
Yeah, I don't know. It's nice though.
Is it what? Oh. What are hops? They're
plants.
What's beer made of?
I thought it was made of wheat.
Yeah, I did.
What's beer made of? Don't know. Doesn't know.
Oh, stupid bitch.
Yeah, shut up. Alexa, shut up. Alexa, shut up. Right.
Just Alexa, Ross, it's Alexa, stop. That's what you got.
Shut up. Disgusting. What's happening in the service station tonight, James?
Well, let's have a look, John. Hold on. Got to stand up.
Anyone there with a sawn-off shotgun?
There's a silver VW van.
Yeah.
I'll keep the window open if you want for a bit of atmosphere.
Yeah, let's keep the window open.
Yeah. We talk till it gets dark.
There you go. All right, let me bring.
I did listen. I'm now up to date listening to our podcast.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's one, I can't remember which it is, where it's
Which
very... No, it's very noticeable that you were steaming all the way through it, Cleves. It might be Satanic Rites of Dracula.
Is that the one I can't stop laughing?
No, I don't think it is, actually.
Is the one I'm talking about? Words with Gummidge.
Possessor.
Words with Gummidge was the one I was really drunk when I was...
I can't remember.
Crying about Wurzel.
But don't get that drunk again, because it's quite hard to listen to.
Okay, I promise. I've already poured out quite a large whiskey, but...
Oh my God.
What whiskey is it? Was that whiskey?
This is...
Looks posh.
Oh, yeah, it is a posh one. Bum
TP for my bumhole.
Yes.
And is that a present from the RNLI or something?
No, that was I don't know. I don't know where it came from. When you're married, things just appear in your house. And you don't.
Children.
Yeah.
Court summonses.